Hello, everybody, and welcome to Skewed and Reviewed. We've got the Skewedcast for you this week. I'm Gareth, creator of Skewed and Reviewed. You can catch us online at sknr.net. You can also catch me each week at on BJ Shea's Geek Nation. Go to kisw.com, or you go to our page, and you will get the latest simulcast. We appear in 8 newspapers. We have our own magazine, and we just put out the June issue of that, so you can catch our cover stories for Borderlands 3, and of course Jedi Fallen Order, as well as our E3 recap, a lot more as in regard to that. So this week, joined as always by with Justin and Michael. We're going to go over some pop culture stuff, and we got a lot of stuff to discuss now. Rather interesting week. We had Justin was off at a wedding, and I've had all sorts of crazy errands, and Michael's had some on-call stuff he had to do because, as you know, we're a week and a half away from San Diego Comic-Con, and right after that we have the D23 Expo, PAX West. So, of course, my inbox is filled with all sorts of media requests. I have some really good ones on tap, but, I always prefer not to say anything about them until they are 100% confirmed. And also, just surprise you, let's just say they are quite impressive. So we're going to be opening up with a little bit of gaming news, and then we're going to swing into some movie stuff. First off, I want to discuss, there is a new gaming aggregate website in the works called Game On Daily. You can check them out at gameondaily.com. They are in the alpha state right now, but they are the latest to come up with a gaming aggregate site. So their idea is that they want to make it easier for people to submit their content. Doesn't look like it's going to have a voting system where you have to reach a certain level of votes before your stuff goes live. That's, usually that's one of the slippery slopes of aggregate sites, is that you don't need 25 people submitting the same story. At the same time, you also don't want it to become a spam filter where everybody can just dump whatever they feel like on there. So I'm curious how they'll do some moderation and stuff like that. But who knows? That is what is in the works. So, gentlemen, let's talk about the theatrical release. Disney had kind of hoped, Sony, an insider estimate, said about $140 to $150 million opening for Spider-Man Far From Home. And it came in at $185 million and $395 million in China, Hong Kong, Japan, and South Korea, which is interesting because these are the only foreign countries it has opened in. There are a lot of other nations that have not had the privilege of seeing the new film yet. So, start with you, Justin. Surprised by this or business as expected?
I would say business as expected. I mean, especially for Spider-Man. Spider-Man is sort of a unique property as far as Marvel properties go. For a long time, the Raimi Spider-Man movies reigned supreme in terms of box office performance, just across the industry. So I think Spider-Man is by far the most popular of Marvel's properties, and also, obviously one of the big reasons why they worked so hard to get it from Sony, and why they're working with Sony on releasing this. So, I think it's sort of business as usual. I also think there's also a little bit of intrigue there as to see how they sort of follow up Endgame. This is sort of like, it's a very kind of strange movie because it's not really the movie that's going to sort of kick off the next phase. It's sort of like the epilogue of, the phases that we've just watched. So I think as a proper sort of send-off for the MCU as we know it so far, it definitely was, it did that job. And for people, I think that was important to go see. So I think that was a huge contributing factor. I also think that there's been a number of movies that have been box office, disappointments in the last probably month or so. So I think this was kind of one of those things where people were sort of waiting for something that was going to be sort of universally accepted as a pretty great movie. And that was also probably a contributing factor as to why it was so successful.
Yeah, makes sense. And Michael, your take, please.
Yeah, I thought I'd heard, and you guys correct me if I'm wrong, but it was like the biggest opening for a Tuesday.
Yes, that's correct.
So I saw it I saw it on opening day, not the preview version, but the actual when it was released. And I have to say that Spider-Man's always been one of my favorite characters, probably my favorite character from the Marvel universe. And I was a huge fan of the Raimi movies, obviously. Even the third one, which didn't do so well, I liked it as well. But I have to say, Tom Holland, I think, really brings a new feel to that Tobey Maguire didn't quite bring with him in that Spider-Man role. And it always feels more like a little bit more lighthearted than the rest of them, even though it still has a lot of intrigue. It has a lot of stuff going on. I was a little worried when they were going to take him out of the friendly neighborhood part and kind of take him worldwide, but I think it turned out really well. Obviously, I don't want to give any spoilers, but I think the how they treated the characters, how they brought that same high school type feel to the movie, even though they were in London and worldwide. I thought that was really well done. So all in all, I was really impressed. I wasn't too worried about the movie being relatively good. But again, I always kind of worry when they kind of go outside the comfort zone and they start taking them into other locales, how that's going to affect the story overall. And I think they did a really good job. So I wouldn't say that I'm surprised either. We hear a lot about superhero fatigue and movie fatigue, but I think what we've learned, at least from the Marvel Cinematic Universe, is that they keep pouring out good storylines. They keep coming up with great content, and people will go to see them. So I've been really impressed with that. They've been able to keep this quality of writing, this quality of filming with as many movies as they've produced. So I think all in all, I think they're still on a really hot streak, and I'm excited to see what the next phase in the Marvel Universe has for us.
Yeah, it's very interesting. And I think, cynics can say, well, the biggest Tuesday opening ever. Okay, most movies open on a Wednesday or a Friday, but still, the fact is it opened on a day that traditionally is not one that movies open big on, and it's still open big. So I'm also curious to see when it's opened in Europe traditionally, if seeing him in these European locales are we going to see bigger numbers out of the cities that he is featured in than we normally do? Because people, Spider-Man's in Venice. Wow. I mean, that's like big news for people out there, and you could say, and it was interesting because they didn't play the safe, he's going to go to Paris, he's going to go to London, he's going to go to Rome. They, had him in a few out of the way locations and stuff like that along the routes between big city. And I think that's only going to help because I think people are going to say, wow, look at that. We were part of the whole universe, as it were. Well, on a happier note, it's been known for a while that San Diego Comic-Con is in the process of trying to get an expansion to the convention center. And this week, what we'd heard, that this was was coming, that they have basically the next 5 years all locked up through San Diego. But word came out that indeed an agreement has been reached with the city that they will continue through 2024. Basically, the agreement continues that they will get their discounted rate on the facility, that they will continue to have hotels cap prices. Now, according to this report, in 2017, nightly hotel prices during the convention ran from 187 to 456 a night. Now, usually, of course, 456 would be the higher end suites and the stuff, literally right there on the property. But they, of course, that has been a big part of it, is that they just don't want it to become a situation where a hotel room is $1,000 a night right there. Now, one of the big points that they're trying to do is work on expansion. One of the debates, for those of you who hadn't followed it, is that they are in favor of expanding the convention center up and outwards. And there have been those that said, well, let's have you build an expansion locale offsite. But of course, since there's so much offsite, they're trying to keep an eye on that. And this, of course, has been back and forth. There was one pitch years ago to tie it in with a new stadium for the Chargers before they left. But here's essentially where they're at. Because of the size of the area, which is massive, and there is a lot of offsite area, they are capped at 135,000 guests in ticket sales. Now, that is a phenomenal number, but as anybody who's been there can attest, they could easily sell 50, 60, 70, 100,000 more tickets without a problem. They are mindful of this, and one of the things that they're trying to do is to basically get an expansion. We've seen a few things toward that regard, like the sales pavilion. Last year, we had a brand new sales pavilion. There has been a little money put into the convention center, not a little, quite a bit. There was some elevator and escalator renovations. So money has been kicked over. We've talked about this before. But essentially, what they want to do, and this is the latest plan, gentlemen, is that they want to approve a bed tax on hotel rooms. Now, this is similar to what Seattle and many other cities did to fund sports stadiums. They essentially said, okay, we're going to put it ended up being something like 1 penny for every $10 spent. But essentially in Seattle, they said, we're going to put a tax on rental cars, hotels in the Seattle area, and restaurants. And again, it came out to roughly 1 penny on every $10. That money would go to pay for the new stadiums. And has been a success. Anyway, so what they're looking at is a 33% increase in floor space. These were laid out 2012, 2016. I'm not going to go into the politics of the whole situation. They, had it combined. It went to the votes, didn't get the necessary votes to pass, but that's where they are working on. So why don't we start with you on this, Michael? You're about to make your first trip into the show. What do you think about the expansion? I mean,
well, yeah, for somebody who's been trying for, 5 or 6 years to go and having to go through the whole lottery system, and I understand why they do that, because they obviously have a limit of how many people can attend. I think obviously expanding it and opening it up to having more attendance would probably be ideal. They know they can get that. And I don't think that, adding an additional tax of, even if it were to come out to a couple of extra dollars per stay or whatever, isn't necessarily a bad thing. I think when you're utilizing, you're coming up with creative ways to fund that, but ultimately this is, Comic-Con brings in a ton of revenue for the city of San Diego. Obviously the hotels, the restaurants, the rental cars, all the stuff you would expect, but even a lot of the smaller shops, mom and pop shops, the ones that don't necessarily get as much of the traditional traffic, see an influx when there's this many people that are come to the event. So I think with the commitment that the city of San Diego is providing to Comic-Con, the commitment to say we're willing to go and provide expansions to our convention center, expansion centers to the area around that, to foster a better experience for those who are attending. More space obviously means hopefully better opportunities to see some of the shows, maybe some improvement in the way crowds are handled and traffic, and being able to facilitate that more. I think when the convention center was initially built, it wasn't really designed, I think, in a lot of cases for these types of events, right? It's 1-day events that bring in 50,000 people or 60,000 people is a big difference in a 4-day, 5-day event that's bringing in 130,000 plus. So, I don't think they
per day,
per day, right? They're
yes.
and those are something that they don't. When all of this was in the conceptual stages, it wasn't probably something they expected. And I think even in the early days of SDCC, I don't think anybody would have predicted that it would have gotten to this size as quickly as it did. The pop culture, we see that here at Phoenix Fan Fusion. Obviously, we see this at other conventions as well, where the phenomenon with the superhero movies, the comic book trends and comic books in general is becoming more, might I say, cool. It's no longer just the geeks and the nerds who are into these kind of things. Now you've got the video gamers, and you've got the popular kids who are now, reading comic books and are into the video game trends. There's all these people, the people that grew up with it, the people that are currently being introduced to it. I think the phenomenon that has become these kind of conventions has grown exponentially, and I just don't think that they had plans in place to make amends for that. So I think anything they could do to expand that and give a better experience for everybody, I think that'll only draw more people in, and will continue to obviously boost the economy, but also boost the individual's experience and give more people the opportunity to go. Not everybody's going to have the chance to win out on the lottery. And if they open it up to another 50 or 60,000 people, that obviously gives a lot more opportunities for those who would be more apt to go if they could. So I think all in all, I think it's something that if the plans are to continue to host it for the next 5, 6 years plus. It continues to grow in popularity as it has done over the past number of years. I don't see any reason not to do that. I think it's an investment that'll be well worth it for the city of San Diego, and obviously for those who love the conventions in general. And hopefully the growth there will continue to spur on growth in these other conventions, whether that be in Denver, or whether that be in Phoenix, or whether that be in Portland or wherever, where we can see these continue to grow and foster that engagement by the folks and give them opportunity to attend. So I think all in all, I think that's really a good opportunity for everybody.
Exactly. Now, Justin, I'll get your take on it in a second, but I wanted to expand on something Michael had brought up. Let's not forget some of the other things that benefit from San Diego Comic-Con. SeaWorld, the San Diego Zoo, Balboa Park, the San Diego Wildlife Park, and some people say, well, I can't stay in San Diego properly, but I'm going to stay in Alpine, I'm going to stay in La Mesa, I'm going to stay in Oceanside and such. And then you have people that say, you know what, if I'm coming down there and my show is Wednesday through Sunday, some people stay a few days after, some people stay a few days before. Oh yeah, there's this thing up the road an hour and a half called Disneyland, Knott's Berry Farm, Universal Studios, Magic Mountain, and all the tourism things. And yes, if you don't think that some of these people, especially those who are coming from other countries, I know, I'll tell you right now, the guys at Movie Hole are coming out. They're flying out from Australia. If you don't think for a minute, since they're coming over to the West Coast, that they are not already kicking it around, okay, we're here, let's get up to Disneyland, let's go see this new Star Wars attraction. This benefits it benefits the city, but there is plenty of benefit to the state. Us as an example, we're going to be doing some time around cities around San Diego before we head back. Now, before I get to you, Justin, Michael had talked about the early days. This is the 50th anniversary of San Diego Comic-Con, and I'll tell you which company it is in a moment, but I always remember this great story from the late 70s of a group saying, yeah, we went to Comic-Con back in the day, and he said, back then we literally had a little folding table and we were selling posters for, I think it was $1 or $1.50 a pop, and that's how they made money. And he said, that's how we were out promoting our upcoming film. This is a little company called Lucasfilm, and it was a little movie called Star Wars. That's how they were promoting it. But even back then, they knew the value of, hey, this is something and this is getting some traction. We need to go to where the people are. So, Justin, your take on all this, please.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't know if I can add anything more. I think you guys have definitely hit the nail on the head here, and I completely agree. I just think that, with growth, it just obviously means that there's definitely a demand there, and there's a lot of success with this particular convention. And so it's a good thing that it's growing. It's a good thing that they're looking into growing it, and it's only going to add more to the convention and add more content to the convention and other conventions as well.
Yeah, and what I'm curious about is this whole debate about expansion versus an offsite expansion. And one of my questions was, okay, if you do the expansion, how do you still have the show while construction's going on? Or are you going to have to scale it down for a year? And that seemed to be kind of a moot point because they were doing they did the show with the sales expansion going on. They just, scheduled things around it. And what I'm curious about is, I know you guys, we don't talk about this as much. There's actually something similar going on in Seattle. Now, the shows are not, under any kind of, well, we're only here for the next few years or so or anything like that. But I can tell you, Emerald City Comic-Con is growing, continues to grow in stature. They do that in April. And then, of course, you have PAX West at the end of August. And a couple of years ago, I had commented, once you get into the main halls, you're okay, but it can get a bit crowded and it can get a little bit, bottled up as you try to go. You'll go from like a large atrium area, but then you get condensed on the escalators, and then you get up and it spreads out and so on and so forth. And the city of Seattle is actually expanding the convention center, but what they are doing is they have a facility a few blocks away that was supposed to be a transit center for King County. And through one building project or another, that one became available because their needs were actually filled somewhere else. So this large pad of land became available. There was already some construction on it. And apparently it'll be open in 2022. They've already started clearing it. Apparently they're going to build down into the ground, make like showroom floors below street level, everything like that, and build the thing up. And they're going to make a multi-floor expansion to it. Now, my thought on it is this will allow them to either A, expand space for big shows like PAX West and Emerald City Comic Con, or to do things like say, okay, this is going on at the convention center. If you don't need quite all the space we have there or a partial space, we can offer you this over here. The City of Seattle claims that there are numbers of shows that they're not able to accommodate due to schedule conflicts or a lack of space. They think this will alleviate it, but one of the arguments had been with Comic-Con, as I understand it, they are not in favor of an off-site expansion because their thing is, we don't want people to have to come out of a panel over at the Hilton, hightail it over to the convention center to do something, and then hightail it, a few blocks down the way, shall we say, to get to the expansion when they already have so much stuff in surrounding hotels in the gas lamp district. Their thing is we don't want people to have to increase their distance to travel and do this. But whereas in Seattle, their attitude is, all right, maybe it's going to take me about 10 minutes to walk there from the convention center, and maybe it might be a pain if I've got a bunch of shopping in my hands, but it's certainly nice to have these options because it's only going to attract. And I'm kind of wondering, 5-year expansion, these people are not stupid. They know very well about what's going on with not only their show, their city, communities around there. And I wonder if cities are going to take a look at this. Anaheim expanded across the courtyard, basically. I wonder if cities are going to look at this and say, did it work for Seattle or didn't it work? But who knows? On to pleasant stuff. We've talked about Spider-Man, and we have word that Marvel, we've talked about, is returning to San Diego Comic-Con this year after sitting out 2018. Now, we've got a lot of people saying this is going to poise to be massive for them because as of now, Warner Brothers, Sony, Universal Pictures, and Lionsgate are not going to be doing major hall presentations. Now, wanted to clarify, some people were like, oh, Warner Brothers is not coming to Comic-Con. That's not correct. Warner Brothers is coming to Comic-Con. Their home video division is going to be there. Their television division is going to be there. And I have had the studio write me and say, yeah, we're going to be there promoting Pokemon. We're going to be there promoting Shazam, but we are not promoting the upcoming films. We're just not doing Hall H stuff, but we're going to have pop-ups and activations all throughout the district. So the other day we get word that not only is Marvel going to be there, they're going to do a 90-minute panel in Hall H. And instead of going in the early afternoon, they're going at 5:15 p.m. So this could easily get right up there till 7 o'clock on Saturday, July 20th. And so everybody's kind of like, okay, what's going to happen? We all had assumed they were going to do something here, but save the big guns for the D23 Expo, which is coming in August. And now we're hearing, well, not hearing as much about their D23 plans other than we know they're going to be there. Justin, your take.
Yeah, so I think this opportunity we're probably going to get titles for the next several Marvel movies. I've kind of brought this up as a point in the past, is that Endgame was sort of like an ending point for the entire story arc that they had been building up for the last 10 years or so of Marvel movies. And they've been very tight-lipped about what's coming next. We only knew a few things about post-Endgame. We obviously knew the sequel to Homecoming, Far From Home, right, was coming out. And then we've heard, of course, that there's another Guardians of the Galaxy movie in the works. But other than that, they've been very tight-lipped about the titles even of any of these movies, or which movies that they're doing. We have some good ideas, but I think that this particular to the time is now. I think Spider-Man just came out. The phase is complete, so I think San Diego Comic-Con is going to be a good opportunity for them to announce the titles for the next probably set of Marvel movies, and maybe we won't get titles for the phase after that, but we might get, a general idea of like which heroes are going to get standalone movies. So definitely going to be exciting. I think that's probably what it's going to be, mainly because with 90 minutes and in Hall H, I can't really imagine it being anything else.
Yeah, you're basically looking at upwards of 6,000 people in that hall. So, they're going to be camping out overnight to get in there. And of course, that the moment these things are revealed, you're going to see the Twittersphere, Instagram, and everything start lighting up with the reveals as they come out, and then the press releases will follow. Michael, your take, please.
Yeah, and let's not forget that we've got Disney's streaming service coming out soon. And this will be an opportunity for them to hype up their live action shows that will be coming to the Disney streaming service as well. So it's not just the Marvel Cinematic Universe as far as the movie franchises are concerned, but also the opportunity to kind of tell us what shows are coming up, maybe give us a sneak peek of what we'll expect to see on some of these shows. So I think it's a good thing. I think with Marvel, we've all been kind of going through the Marvel Cinematic Universe up until Endgame. That obviously Far From Home was kind of the ending of that phase. And now we kind of need to reboot, reset where we're at, figure out where we're going from here, maybe get an idea of what movies are in the near future, maybe even get an opportunity to see what's on the roadmap down the way. What are we going to see? How many other Black Panther movies are we going to see? What other type of Captain Marvel movies are coming? What's the new Avenger team going to be made up of? Who's it going to be made up of? And that sort of thing. So I think it's an opportunity to kind of fill out that roadmap a bit. Obviously, I don't know that we're going to see a lot of sneak peeks as far as new movie franchise, the new movies coming out themselves, maybe a little bit with something that's, the new Black Widow movie or something along those lines. But I would suspect that we will see something with some of their streaming shows, and then obviously get an idea of just where the next Marvel, where we're going in the next Marvel universe. Where is it going to take us? What can we expect from the next 10 years? What's the next big story arc that we're expecting to see? So I think it's a really good opportunity to say, hey, yes, we all know that you've been with us through all these movies. Yes, we know Endgame would kind of as a close to that era, but hey, we're not going anywhere. We're ready to start at the next storyline and build to that, whatever that next era happens to be. So this is a good chance for them just to kind of, reassert with the fans, reaffirm with the fans that they're, what's coming out, something to get the fans excited and stoked for it, and obviously give them an opportunity to kind of promote their the Disney streaming service as well. So I think it's a win-win from a Disney perspective and a Marvel perspective overall.
Yeah, now here's where it's interesting. We've got a little bit of a chess game going on. So I've talked with some people, and this is basically what the speculation is. So here we go. Black Widow, obviously, since you mentioned that is the one that we understand is filming. The Eternals, Shang-Chi, and then, of course, there's always the option of Doctor Strange, Guardian of the Galaxy, Black Panther, and Captain Marvel. So those are the ones that we all have an idea, and that's kind of what it's speculating. I still think they may even do something where they bring out the Avengers cast and let them take a curtain call, because, if certain people are out of the Marvel universe, although I still think they still might do, flashbacks or alternate universe or whatever. But bottom line, they might be able to say, one guy in particular, you carried this film, Robert, you've carried this franchise since the very beginning. You need to be out here taking a bow in front of the audience. So that's what's going to go on with that. Now, here's where it's interesting. The speculation, we had talked about what they might do at Disney D23. The belief is that what they could do is they could roll out and say, okay, like, for example, we're going to announce what's coming, and maybe we'll give you a little bit of casting, and so on and so forth, because they've got a lot to fill, and a big chunk of it is usually Q&A, and I can't see them doing a lot of Q&A with films that are still to come, because that'll be, well, we can't talk about it right now, blah, blah, blah. So that's where I think the idea for a potential retro panel where we're going to bring out the cast of the Avengers and let them talk, who knows. The speculation is that they are going to hold off on the streaming services until the D23 Expo. And there is a lot of stuff, I do think when we get to the D23 Expo in August, they're probably going to be pushing that streaming service big time because as, my math understands it, that is the last media-related con until the convention opens. I mean, yes, you have the video game conferences and stuff like that, but they're probably going to push it. And it's, we've heard all sorts of rumors. But people think that things like Loki, Falcon and the Winter Soldier, all the other things, they're going to get their shot at the showcase in D23. Now, that is interesting because usually the big showcase is related to film. Even though I know they will have films on the streaming service, the other things have their own panels. So it's kind of like that shell game. My guess would be like, for example, let's talk about Black Widow. So let's say they make an announcement of Black Widow, okay? Then they roll out the next few films. D23 Expo will be where they probably say, here's Scarlett Johansson and a couple of her co-stars. Here's a special film clip of something behind the scenes that we just filmed the other week. And for example, I remember going to one of them. We had Comic-Con just a month or so before, but they went out and said, okay, here you go. Here's your first, they saved the announcement for what the name of the next Avengers film was, and then they put the logo up. All they did was pop it right on the screen, Avengers Age of Ultron. Place went crazy. They showed us clips from Thor the Dark World that was coming out soon. They showed us stuff from Captain America Winter Soldier that had literally only been filmed the week before. Now, you get the sizzle reel at Comic-Con, but you got the steak and not the sizzle at the D23 Expo. And I think that's how they're going to do it. I expect them to be kind of treating this as a two-pronged thing. We're going to do the reveals here, but we're going to give you a lot more at our own show in a month's time. Now, switching gears, we've talked a lot about the shows that will not be there. So let's talk about what will be there. So I'm going to run a few things through. You guys have the list as well. So please chime in. Terminator Dark Fate is going to be there from 11 to 12 in Hall H. And Justin, I know that you have to run really soon because you have a commitment. Would you like to run off your list of what you are looking forward to hearing? And then Michael and I will be able to finish this up really soon. But, I'm going to just zip through. I've got Terminator Dark Fate. I've got Batman Beyond. I have got the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. going to Hall H. And we've got the Ghostbusters anniversary. We've got a 20th anniversary of Farscape. And, of course, we got the horror films of the Banana Splits movie and the new Critters film, stuff on Cobra Kai. We've got stuff on Superstore, Shazam, Crank Yankers. It's kind of interesting how we're going big to small. So, but, of course, the big AMC shows, Walking Dead, Nosferatu. Justin, really quick, what are you looking forward to?
Honestly, I'm going to, highlight mostly the shows, mostly like the Netflix shows. So, I'm very interested to see stuff on The Witcher and the new Dark Crystal material as well. So, I'm very excited for those shows, and I think those are going to probably have a pretty strong showing there.
Okay, and Michael, any of the ones that you're looking forward to?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, what we can expect from the Star Trek universe, the new Picard show that's coming out. I agree with Justin in the fact that Dark Crystal and Witcher are two of my must-watch shows that are going to be coming up soon. I saw the preview for Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, the Guillermo del Toro movie, and it looks fantastic. So some more sneak previews of that things. But I think overall, I mean, there's just so much to see and so much to really take in. I think one of the things that still kind of surprises me is I know we had talked a year or 2 years ago about Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., how I felt that was on its last legs. And now we've kind of seen it really come back around and really kind of take off. So obviously the fact that they're still devoting to that series and continue to work on that series, I think tells us a lot about the superhero fatigue in general. So all in all, I mean, there's a lot of stuff coming and it'll be really interesting to see it all.
And what's interesting, too, is, we've got all the CW things. We got the AMC shows. We've got the FX shows. We also have the Sci-Fi Channel shows, but there's also retro stuff. You mentioned the Star Trek panels. they have the cast of Parks and Recreation doing a 10th year retrospective and stuff like that. And of course, this is going to lead to people going, oh, is it going to be rebooted, so on and so forth. Now, bit pressed on time because Justin, with his travels, has a schedule conflict, so we're going to wrap it up. But I did want to mention this really quick in closing. We saw the live-action trailer for Mulan debut today. We've got the Lion King opening very soon, the Maleficent sequel coming in October. We're hearing word that True Blood and Legend of Tarzan star Alexander Skarsgård is in consideration for the live action of Hercules, which may be the next of the animated films to get a live action reboot. So we're going to be keeping an eye on that. That's another thing we'll definitely be following at D23 Expo. And next week, we're going to have an expanded show previewing what's coming up, because by then we should have all our meetings locked in, and we'll have a lot more news coming this week. So folks, until next week, take care, have a very safe week, and hope everything goes well for you. Have a good one. Bye-bye now.